Good evening and welcome to Black and Azul episode 59. Charles Wollin with you after the Quakes defeat LAFC tonight with a 90th minute winner from Jackson Yueill. Shea Salinas also scored his first goal of the season this evening. And this is somewhat of a surprising result, a shocking result, but certainly a confidence booster tonight for the San Jose Earthquakes. The rest of the team, of course, joins me. Joel Soria, Alex Morgan, and Jamon Moore is actually on assignment because he was covering Reno this weekend. So I'll start with you, Joel. Initial thoughts tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Charles. Good evening, Alex. This was nothing short of a massive spirit booster for Almeida and his men. A night that started off a little slow, that I thought was the most anti-Almeida tactics by Almeida himself, ended up paying up in the second half, where they really changed it up and they were able to hang in, largely due to an LAFC that was faulty in front of goal, and obviously a tenacity, a grit, a passion, a relentlessness from this Quake side that was never going to give up. And as you mentioned, Charles, you know, they walk off with a huge win, and with their first ever competitive win against LAFC in the team's history.
Alex Morgan, what did you make of tonight? There were so many lopsided losses leading up to this performance. And the first half went somewhat well. And then in the 45th minute, right on the edge, right on the stroke of halftime, they concede a goal. And then they get back in this game through Shea Salinas, the makeshift left back, if you will, and then Jackson Yueill cutting through central midfield for that 90th minute winner. Your thoughts tonight?
Thanks, Charles. Yeah, that was a remarkable victory, and I think the Quakes earned it. They deserve credit for sticking in the match, even though LAFC were piling pressure on them. I think JT Martinkowski was definitely the man of the match in goal. He made a couple of strong saves to keep them in it. He looked solid throughout with his distribution and his presence in the air. And then Cade Cowell and Shea Salinas also added that spark off the bench. But really, I just think it's incredible that LAFC let them stay in the match for that long, that they allowed the Quakes to steal that victory, because LAFC had more than enough chances to run away with it, and they just didn't put them away. They weren't clinical enough in the final third.
Let's talk about spirit tonight. Let's talk about energy levels and some of the things that I noticed, especially in the first 5 minutes of this game. You saw Marco Lopez out there at left back. He put in a couple of challenges right away, and you could just kind of see the mindset of this team. And it has been challenged clearly by the captain, Chris Wondolowski, in his post-game comments last time. And Almeida is always about the Bushido code and talking about team unity, team spirit, the energy levels. But there was a certain different kind of spirit this evening, certainly that I saw in this team, an energy, a different kind of a way of going about it this evening against this LAFC side. And let's also note this LAFC side that has taken full points off of Almeida and kicked Almeida's team out of the US Open Cup last year as well.
Yeah, Charles, I think it was their defensive posture tonight. Almeida didn't really change the man marking tactics. The Quakes were still man marking across the field, but it had a defensive flavor, a posture. They weren't pressing high up the pitch. They weren't pressing the center backs like they usually do. They were sitting a little deeper and starting that press a little deeper. And I think that defensive posture, that mindset change was what made the difference. I think they saw their role as trying to weather the storm and stick in it as long as possible, and then try to get something, create something on the breakaway. And I think that defensive mindset, even though the tactics were similar, I think that was the key.
I think tonight we saw the perfect dichotomy, right? You have a very slow first 45 minutes, a very defensive first 45 minutes. The Quakes were able to conserve their energy by not pressing up so high as we mostly see them do in the first 45. They go out guns blazing. Almeida wants to reveal all his cards, and before you know it, a midfield gets severely punished. And so and consequently, so does the defense, and so does the man between the sticks. Tonight we saw a more composed, a more robust Quakes that allowed them to save up their energy. which they obviously exuded with high fashion in the final 45 minutes of this game. Just look at the statistics. I mean, the first half, the Quakes didn't win possession. In the final 45 minutes, they were able to recuperate 59% of that possession to LAFC's 41. They were able to outgenerate in terms of shots fired at goal. You know, as I mentioned earlier, the first 45 were the most anti-Almeida tactics that we've seen from Almeida himself ever since he took over, in my opinion, back in 2019. And, you know, I think that over the last couple of weeks, there have been many critics of Almeida. And sure, you know, today the players really stepped up. Alex, you mentioned a good performance from JT Martinkowski. I wouldn't give him the man of the match title whatsoever. I think that goes directly to Jackson Ewell, who had a clever flick in the final 6. I mean, inches from goal, has the audacity to flick it with his right foot past Cisniega. But the final 45, the tactics, you know, the ability to preserve energy and really fire back at a team that was squandering chances left and right was the concoction that led to these massive 3 points. You know, now they're 4 points out of the 8th spot. 4 is a lot better than 7, if you tell me.
Joel, I only have one contention, and that is I think that JT Marcinkowski is the man of the match tonight. I think that performance was probably the best performance by a San Jose Earthquakes goalkeeper this season. I mean, he made a fantastic fingertip save to deny Rossi in the first half, and he also had a couple of other important stops. And I think that those demonstrate that his shot stopping is more or less equivalent to Daniel Vega's. And then on top of that, he was also confident and assured in the air, which Vega is not. He also had a couple nice long throws to launch quick breakaways. And he was also just really composed on the ball. Even though LAFC were pressing him really hard, I can't think of any times that he panicked and hammered the ball long, which is something that Vega does 5 or 6 times a game. So for me, I think that performance removes any doubt about whether JT should be starting. I think not only does he have a bright future, but he's the man right now as well.
Let's listen to Matias Almeida now in his press conference. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into Black and Azul episode 59. We appreciate you, and stand by for more analysis and to hear from Matias Almeida.
English and then a few in Spanish. So let's start with Elliot Almond. Elliot, we will come back to you. Let's go to Alicia Rodriguez.
Hi, thank you. Matias, congratulations on the win tonight. It looked like the biggest thing was that the team was really fighting throughout. You know, they had a coherent game plan, but it looked like the will to stay in the game and stay with LAFC was what really put them over the top. What do you think was key to the victory tonight?
El equipo sé que tenía un buen plan del partido, pero lo que más saca es que como peleó el equipo, se vio que el equipo peleó mucho más hoy, y para vos, ¿qué fue la clave hoy para ganar el partido?
Bueno, primero, buenas noches.
First thing, good evening.
Creo que el planteo fue bueno.
I think the game plan was good.
Jugamos ante un rival poderoso de esta liga.
We played against a powerful opponent from this league.
Un rival que cada vez que ha jugado en contra nuestro nos ha goleado.
That whenever we played this opponent, they've routed us.
Y lo único que le pido a los jugadores es que ante la adversidad
The only thing I ask the players is against adversity,
se redoblen.
to double down.
En la vida y en el fútbol, quien lucha nunca está muerto.
In life and in football, whoever fights is not dead.
Tenemos un equipo con jóvenes,
We have a team with
un
youngsters,
equipo con mucha gente lesionada,
a team with many injuries.
y hoy pudimos darnos una alegría
Today we were able to get happiness
al grupo, a la gente, a los dirigentes,
to the group, to the fans, to the board,
sobre todo por el rival
especially because of the opponent
y por la situación incómoda en la cual veníamos de tantos goles en contra.
and the uncomfortable situation that we've come from to receive so many goals.
Los jugadores entregaron su alma
The players gave their soul,
y volvimos a tener en parte aquello que tuvimos el año pasado y en Orlando.
and we went back to what we had part of last year and then during Orlando.
Mucha entrega,
Giving a lot,
mucho juego
playing a lot
contra un rival que en la lista es superior a nosotros.
against an opponent who, if you look at the list, they're superior to us.
Bueno, una demostración que podemos ir por más.
It's a showing that we can go for more.
Thank you, Matthias. Let's go back to Elliot Allman.
Hola, hello, good evening. Matthias, congratulations.
Thank you.
And there were still issues with in the back line with passing out to get the attack going. But what changed with this team? I think you sort of laid it out with the fight and the mental strength they had to play this one out and get 3 points. You only had a short period of time from Colorado. What were you able to do to get them to play the way you want them to play?
Bueno, felicidades. Hubo algunos problemas también con tratando de salir jugando de atrás y sumar el ataque. ¿Qué para vos cambió para el equipo? Dice que ya sabe que también respondiste más o menos esto en la última pregunta, que era la lucha. ¿Qué cambiaste en tan poco tiempo del último partido de la
Contarles a los jugadores que si en un momento,
telling the players that if at one time,
no hace mucho, jugaron un buen fútbol,
not long ago, they played good football,
ningún jugador se olvida de jugar fútbol si es que lo juega.
no player forgets how to play football if he plays.
La vida tiene momentos de dificultad,
Life has difficult moments.
el fútbol muchas veces nos pone en dificultad,
Football many times puts us in difficulties.
está la templanza,
There's giving up,
la fe
faith,
y el convencimiento de saber que podemos cambiar la imagen
and
y
then
podemos cambiar nuestro juego y podemos cambiar esa actitud que tenemos.
convincing ourselves that we can change the image, how we play, and the attitude that we have as well.
Hemos buscado, cada minuto no hemos parado de trabajar, más allá de que no tengamos el tiempo en campo,
Each minute we have not stopped working, even though we didn't have much time on the field.
pero con parte de la dirigencia y con el staff estamos dedicándole 15, 16 horas al día para revertir esta situación.
But along with the board and the staff, we're investing 15 hours to overcome this situation.
No vamos a bajar los brazos
We're not going to drop our arms,
porque personalmente estoy acostumbrado a la lucha en mi vida
because personally I'm used to fighting in my life,
y lo último que hago es dejar de luchar.
and the last thing that I do is to stop fighting.
Hoy estoy contento por este partido, por los jugadores,
And I'm happy for this game, for the players,
por la gente que hace un tiempo no le damos una alegría
for the fans who it's been a while that we haven't given them happiness,
y por cada persona que trabaja para los Quakes, que hace que nosotros podamos trabajar.
and for everybody that works for the Quakes that allow us to work.
Y si ustedes ven el segundo gol, en el festejo marca lo que son los Quakes.
And if you watch in the second goal in the celebration, that shows who the Quakes are,
Y ante la adversidad.
and against adversity.
Thank you, Matthias. Let's take 2 more in English. We'll go to Robert Jonas.
Thank you, and congratulations, Coach. One of the big changes tonight was seeing the return of JT Martinkowski in goal, and we saw today, as we did in the game against Portland, his ability to play the ball with his feet, to distribute the ball out of the back. In combination with the small adjustments you've made to bring back your line of engagement on defense, how did JT's ability to spread the ball around, contribute to the team's ability to stay in this game and keep you guys in it to the end?
Hoy uno de los cambios que se notó, además de retroceder la línea más atrás, fue la habilidad de JT que volvió a jugar, la habilidad de JT de jugar con los pies. ¿Cuánto ayudó la habilidad de JT con su manera de jugar con los pies, de ayudar al equipo y que mantenga al equipo hasta el final?
Mucho, mucho como todos, porque hoy tomaron riesgo y volvieron a hacer lo que practicaban.
It helped a lot like everybody, because we went back to doing what we practiced.
Creo que trato siempre de proteger a los más jóvenes.
I think I always try to protect the younger ones.
Cuando los momentos son difíciles, tirar a la cancha jóvenes muchas veces es quemarlos.
Many times when you're going through difficult moments, when you play a youngster, you can burn them.
Hace 30 años que estoy en el fútbol, no como entrenador, pero sí en el fútbol.
I've been in football for 30 years, not as a coach, but in football.
Creo haber absorbido algo de experiencia.
I think I've absorbed some experience.
Y cuando tomo las decisiones sé por qué las tomo.
And when I make a decision, I know why I make it.
Más allá de que soy un ser humano y me puedo equivocar.
Beyond the fact that I'm a human being and I can make mistakes.
Pero considero que a los jóvenes hay que llevarlo de a poco.
But I consider that you got to take the youngsters slowly.
Una cosa es poner jóvenes cuando el equipo va peleando y va ganando.
It's one thing to play youngsters when your team is fighting and winning.
Porque ellos se tienen que divertir.
Because they have to have fun.
Ellos tienen que aprender.
They have to learn.
Como todos hemos aprendido en la vida.
Like all of us, we've learned in life.
Entonces voy viendo cuándo es el momento de poner a uno y cuándo no.
So I'm seeing when it's time to play one and when it's not.
Hoy jugó Tanner nuevamente.
Today Tanner played again.
Tanner el año pasado jugaba en la universidad.
Last year Tanner played in college.
Y hoy estaba marcando uno de los goleadores del mundo.
And today he's marking one of the worldwide goal scorers.
Quienes venimos del fútbol desde hace mucho tiempo.
Those of us who have been in football for a long time.
Sabemos que los jóvenes llevan un proceso.
And that youngsters require a process.
Llevan un tiempo.
They take time.
Y hay que darle confianza.
We have to give them
Hay que
confidence.
permitir que se equivoquen.
We have to allow them to make mistakes.
Porque de la equivocación se aprende.
Because they learn from those mistakes.
Entró otro joven, que es Kate.
Another youngster came on who is Cade.
Muy joven.
Very young.
Y lo voy llevando de a poco.
And I'm taking them little by little.
Entró Eric Calvillo.
Eric Calvillo came on.
Entró, bueno, jugó Jackson, que ya está consolidado.
Jackson played, who's already been there.
No es fácil.
And it's not easy.
No es fácil. Entonces, quienes dirigimos,
those of us who coach,
quienes creemos en un proyecto a largo plazo,
and those of us who believe in a long-term project,
nunca nos dejamos llevar por comentarios,
never get carried away by comments,
ni por el resultado.
nor by results.
Si a mí me dijeron que iba a estar 4 años,
Project to improve certain things.
Hi there. If you're just tuning into Black and Azul episode 59, you're seeing a press conference here with Matias Almeida. We're just working on the audio here from our feed. Charles Wollin with you, Alex Morgan, and Joel Soria as well. And we are just refreshing our feed.
Que no siempre se logra lo que uno quiere.
Football and life, I believe that you don't always achieve what you want.
He tenido posibilidades de ganar en el fútbol como jugador y como entrenador.
I've had the possibility in football to win as a player and a coach.
Y he pasado por otros momentos de dificultad.
And I've gone through other difficult moments.
No cambia mi manera de ser.
It does not change my way of being.
No cambia mi manera de trabajar.
It does not change my way of working.
Porque sigue siendo un deporte para mí.
Because it's still a sport to me.
El cual amo.
Which I love.
Lo trabajo con pasión.
I work on it with passion.
Con amor.
With love.
Y reconociendo que a veces me equivoco.
And recognizing that sometimes I make mistakes.
Es la única manera que tengo de mejorar.
That's the only way I have to improve.
Y mi vida es constantemente un objetivo de mejorar.
And in my life, a constant objective is to improve.
Pero no mejorar como entrenador nada más.
But not just to improve as a coach.
Porque hay un entrenador que es una persona.
Because there's a coach who is a person.
Que siente, ama, llora, sufre,
who feels,
se preocupa,
cries, he worries.
Pero nunca regala el trabajo.
But he never gives his job away.
No, no. Nunca.
Never.
Thank you, Matias. One more in English from Alex Morgan.
Hi, Matias. You mentioned last week that the owner of this team has a choice to make. What is that choice, and how does a win like this, or what does a win like this show the owner? How does it influence his decision?
La semana pasada que hay un dueño que tiene que tomar una decisión. ¿Cuál es esa decisión y una victoria como esta, cómo influye esa decisión?
De la misma manera.
It influences it in the same way.
Esto no es un día para el otro.
This is not from one day to the next.
Estamos jugando un campeonato en una pandemia.
We're playing a tournament during a pandemic.
Estamos jugando un campeonato, como le dije, con jóvenes, con jugadores lesionados,
Playing a tournament with
sin
youngsters,
preparación.
with injuries, with lack of preparation.
No es fácil.
And it's not easy.
Lo que he hablado con el dueño,
What I've talked to with the owner,
lo sabe Jesse,
Jesse knows it,
que hemos hablado con el dueño,
that we've talked to the owner,
lo sabe el dueño
the owner knows it,
y lo sé yo.
and I know it.
Y no me interesa que lo sepa nadie más.
And I'm not interested in anybody else knowing it.
Thank you, Matias. We just have time for 2 questions in Spanish. So let's go first to Joel Soria.
Buenas noches, Matías.
Buenas noches.
¿Qué se debe de hacer ahora en el tema psicológico y en el tema futbolístico para poder seguir en este camino? Buenas noches y gracias.
Sí, Joel, como lo he dicho, este campeonato para nosotros va a ser difícil. Nosotros tenemos un plantel corto, estamos apostando a esta juventud para que el día de mañana, el torneo que viene, estén más formados. Obviamente nunca quisimos perder tantos partidos por tantas cantidades de goles, la verdad que no. Pero no cambia una victoria, la victoria cambió un sistema de juego, un poco más defensivo, pero bueno, también es adecuarnos al momento, al presente y a las necesidades. Pero tratamos de no resignar lo que nosotros queremos. Entonces, va a ser duro de acá al final, porque tenemos que jugar todos los partidos de esta manera. Y así todo, siempre el rival nos puede superar un poco. Ahora, hoy, ante la adversidad de venir tantos partidos con derrota, con tantos goles en contra, creo que se recuperó esa energía que yo pretendo de un grupo de jugadores de fútbol. La unión, la sabiduría para aceptar el momento y para redoblar una apuesta. No entregarse nunca. Podemos estar de rodillas, pero nos paramos y seguimos. Bueno, esta es la filosofía que tenemos, o la cual me trajo a mí acá. Pero bueno, este año fue difícil. Nosotros mostramos una cara muy linda, muy importante en Orlando, con una manera de entrenar, con una manera de convivir, y esto ha cambiado para todos, y para todos hablo, todos los equipos. Ahora, aquellos que tienen muchos recambios, lo sienten menos. Y nosotros estamos apostando a la juventud en esta pandemia, en este torneo, y a los jugadores que, como Wandolowski y Jay Salinas, están dando el alma con la experiencia que tienen, como Vega, que le ha tocado sufrir, aguantar, y en momentos ha pasado muy bien y en momentos mal, pero no dejan de hacer grupos. Entonces, desde afuera se puede ver una cosa, y por eso remarco el segundo gol, el festejo. Ese festejo es el que tuvimos en Orlando. Entonces quiere decir que esta unión que tiene este equipo de los errores, no de casi todos, algunos se me deben pasar como ser humano, repito, pero sí tenemos las ganas para seguir luchando y siendo conscientes de la realidad.
Thank you, Matias. And the last question will go to Carlos Ramirez.
Profe, un fuerte abrazo. Carlos Ramírez de Telemundo San José. ¿Cómo le va? Qué alegría, profe.
Un abrazo, Carlos. Sí, la verdad que sí. Necesitábamos.
Profe, le soy sincero. A mí me hacía falta ver a los Quakes de Matías Almeida. ¿A qué me refiero con esto? En el fútbol, y usted lo sabe muy bien, que somos personas de fútbol, se dice que los equipos se parecen a sus técnicos. Y a mí estos Quakes hace rato no se me parecían a Matías Almeida. Y hoy, y qué linda metáfora, que el volante 5 es el que termina con un taquito, con una irreverencia, con ese irrespeto del fútbol hermoso, la posición que tú jugaste desbalanceando el partido, con esa alegría, con ese desparpajo, con esa potencia, ¿no? Y te pregunto, profe, si este partido mentalmente sientes que le permite a tu equipo romper una barrera y al mismo tiempo quitarse la excusa, si es que existía, de es que no podemos, es que no nos da, sea, este partido es un parteaguas, Matías, y si de ahora en adelante se tiene que siempre ver este Quakes. Gracias.
Bueno, te mando un abrazo. Mira, yo creo que quien me conoce de verdad sabe que en el diccionario de mi vida no existe la palabra entregarse, no existe la palabra no puedo, no existen muchas palabras dentro del diccionario de mi vida. Sí existe aceptación, sí hay una materia que tengo que se llama humildad, la cual la trabajo, para darme cuenta, para escuchar, para querer seguir aprendiendo. Pero soy real, trato de ser real. Un equipo mío, no mío, un equipo dirigido por mí, junto a mi cuerpo técnico, cuando no trabaja, que fue la primera vez que nos pasó, se siente. Esta semana pudimos agregar un día más de trabajo. Bueno, pudimos trabajar un poquitito más. ¿Cómo? Para cambiar un sistema de juego. Por eso digo, muchas veces hablamos por un resultado. A mí no es que me cambie la vida haber ganado, sino que me da felicidad. Pero cuando sos entrenador y querés cambiar un sistema porque sabés que no estamos llegando a tiempo, porque perdemos balones, porque no hay piernas, no se puede cambiar en un día, muchachos. Es una mentira que yo venga y diga o culparnos o culpar a alguien. La realidad es que nuestros equipos tienen que trabajar. Entonces estamos cumpliendo con el objetivo de jugar un torneo extraño, un torneo difícil, pero necesitamos trabajar. Recién va a ser la primera vez que vamos a poder trabajar 5 días. Entonces, bueno, seguiremos corrigiendo dentro de 5 días. No garantiza nada, pero sí meteremos eso que tanto tenemos nosotros, que es que nos gusta el trabajo, nos gusta corregir, nos gusta que ellos puedan razonar por qué nos equivocamos. Tenemos un ida y vuelta, pero bueno, siempre es mejor, obviamente, después de un triunfo, porque estamos más claros. Los jugadores hablamos mucho, la verdad, hablamos mucho. Tratamos de entrar desde un lugar humano, como ustedes ya, los que me conocen saben, para sacarle lo mejor, para que no tengan presión. Los resultados adversos son resultados adversos. No son imposibles de cambiar. Se puede cambiar. Se necesita tiempo para cambiar. Porque la magia en el fútbol, y aquellos que creen que hay entrenadores que hacemos magia, es mentira. Porque si existiera la magia, siempre digo, se compra y no entrenamos nada y le damos magia que tomen los jugadores y entonces se resuelve todo más fácil. Acá hay un proyecto, hay un proceso. Lleva más tiempo que otros clubes. La inversión que hizo, por ejemplo, este club Los Ángeles no la ha hecho hasta el día de hoy San José. Bueno, hay diferencia. Lo que jugamos contra el primero que nos goleó, el primero de Orlando, hay una diferencia. Nosotros estamos sacando jóvenes también, dentro de los jugadores lesionados que tenemos. Entonces, es tiempo, pero obviamente el tiempo no depende de nosotros, sino de otras personas.
All right. Thank you very much, Matthias and Augustine. Congratulations on the victory. We will now be bringing in a couple players shortly.
That you just heard Matias Almeida in his press conference after tonight's 2-1 victory against LAFC, the first victory the Quakes have ever had against LAFC since LAFC has been in Major League Soccer. Also to note, LAFC had some good results against this Quakes team last year and earlier this year, and a 2-1 victory for the Quakes is certainly going to give them some confidence. The rest of the panel is here joining me, Alex Morgan and Joel Soria. I want to talk about Matias Almeida's comments here. He said the players gave their soul this evening. He said, we're not going to drop our arms because I'm used to fighting in my life. And he said, what I talk about with the owner, Jesse knows, the owner knows it. I'm not interested in anybody else knowing. He said, each minute we did not stop working, even when it's not on the field. He said, I think the game plan was good. We played against a powerful opponent, obviously. Whenever we play this opponent, we double down. So there's Matias Almeida's comments from tonight, a little bit of the abridged version. Obviously, he had a lot to say. Joel, I'll start with you.
Yeah, obviously long-winded as always on the Spanish end. A lot of interesting comments from Matia. Obviously, very praiseworthy of the fighting spirit that his team showed, of the tenacity, of the hunger, of the poise. Gave a couple of shout-outs to some of the veterans in the team, such as Chris Wondolowski and Shea Salinas. But he also, and obviously he mentioned that he was happy, but that he's not trying to look too far past these 3 points. He made it very clear that the remainder of the season is still going to be very, very challenging and very difficult and very exhausting.
Hello, everyone. Hey, Jake.
Well, it looks like we have Shea Salinas.
Congrats on the goal and the victory. Great.
And I think we're just not at the top of the press conference there. And Joel, I didn't want to.
A lot over the years and your time with the Earthquakes, about the Goonies magic, about sticking with it to the end, of you getting those big timely goals. But walk us through what happened on the night and how it feels to finally get that win after so long waiting for one.
Yeah, I think first of all, from the bench, I was just impressed with our fight, our energy. They're not an easy team to mark. And guys are just flying around the field, getting in tackles, winning 50-50 balls, slide tackling, pressing hard. We did not give them much space in their attacking third. So I was just from the bench, just impressed with our guys' effort. And then to get subbed in, you want to match that effort. You want to bring energy to the game. And so being able to do that was good. All the guys that got subbed in brought energy, got stuck into tackles. We were able to come out with 3 points, which was needed.
Thank you, Shea. Let's go now to Alex Morgan.
Hi, Shea. Congrats on the win and congrats on the goal, obviously. You played in a deeper position tonight in the left back role when Marcos Lopez went out injured. How comfortable do you feel in that position? And how important is it for you to show that you can contribute to this team in multiple roles?
Yeah, I think that the left back position is something that you guys know I played before. I think it's a different role when you start the game at left back as opposed to coming off the bench. When you come off the bench, the midfielder's usually a little more tired, wants to cheat a little more. So I'm able to attack a lot more when I come off the bench in that role. And I think that's what Matias wants. Starting in that role is much different. There's a lot more defending that you have to do. And so I think I'm more comfortable playing left back coming off the bench. But honestly, I've said this before, I just want to be on the field. So I'll try my hardest wherever I am. You won't ever doubt my effort. Sometimes it doesn't always turn out the way I want it to, but I'll give it 100%. And tonight it worked out. Baco was holding the ball up and allowing me to get forward. And then we were able to attack down that side a few times.
Thank you, Shea. Let's go now to Joel Soria.
Hey, Shea. Congrats on the 3 points there and on the goal. That celebration said it all. How do you summarize this moment? Given obviously everything that has been happening as of late, and just to find that joy again, to see that light at the end of the tunnel. What does that mean to you personally and to the team?
I think it's a game where we can gain confidence in ourselves. All week we talked about having confidence, being able to play out of the back, having confidence in who we are. We're the same team that everyone was talking about in Florida. We just have to believe in ourselves. And I think tonight you saw that. We were confident playing out of the back. Even when we lost the ball, we kept playing out of the back. Even when we got scored on, we kept playing. We kept getting tackles. We didn't change our mindset. And sometimes it's going to work like it did tonight, and sometimes it's not. But what can't change is our effort and our confidence in each other. And so tonight it was like it was the the confidence coming to fruition. Like, we had confidence in ourselves, and then it came into fruition through us winning a game. And so it kind of, hopefully we build on that, and we remember who we are, and we can keep playing that way.
Thank you. Let's take 2 more questions, starting with Robert Jonas.
Thank you. Excuse me. It's great to see you smile, and I hope I don't get you in trouble that you're not wearing your mask. But it's great to see your face again for one of these. No, teasing you. My question is kind of a follow-up to Joel's. I saw the adjustments. I saw the adjustments too. It looks like your line of engagement's a little further back. You had JT in goal, who seemed to be much more comfortable playing the ball out with his feet. I've been critical about how tired everyone's looked and how disappointed everyone's looked in games, and changes didn't seem to be coming. Chris talked about not needing to make changes last week, but there seemed to be some adjustments that played a role tonight. In your eyes, did those adjustments play a significant role, as well as, like you say, just the belief and the confidence that you guys had?
I think the changes made were also because of who we're playing. I mean, LAFC, you guys know better than I do our stats against them and how they play. I think they're one of the most technical teams in the league. So I think that was sitting back a little bit was needed. But man, when they crossed the midfield point, we were on them. We were stepping. As soon as they made any penetrating balls, we were our usual selves, right up behind them. And so that was good. And I think you're right to say that. I mean, the amount of games we've had is something I've never seen in my career. And so energy levels it's difficult to maintain. It's difficult to get yourself up every 3 days for another game when you're sore and bruised. But we did it tonight, and we showed ourselves that we can keep doing it. And now we got a 6-day break, which will feel like an eternity because the last 9 games we haven't had more than 3. So we have some tired legs and beat up bodies, but we came through tonight, which was big for us.
Thank you, Shay. And one last question from Carlos Ramirez.
Hi, Shay. Carlos Ramirez from NBC, Bay Area, and Telemundo. Congrats on the win. What changed emotionally? Because the team seemed different. It seemed with an edge, fighting every ball. I could see Matias. I could see a Matias Almeida team on the pitch from everyone. What did it change? Because the time was the same as you had before to prepare for this game, maybe a bit more, but not that much. And how do you maintain that attitude going forward?
I think the key word I would use is confidence. We have to have confidence when we press that we're going to get there, and that if we don't, the guy behind us will cover us. I think when we lack that confidence in our pressing, we're a step late and they 1-2 us, or they turn and they're able to find a free man. So confidence in our pressing, and then also confidence when we have the ball. When we control the ball, when we have the ball, we can rest a little bit, we can dictate the pace of the game, and we can allow for attacking chances. So confidence in defending and confidence in attacking is the big difference tonight. So that was big.
All right. Thank you very much, Shay. Have a safe flight home, and congrats again on the win.
There you heard Shea Salinas. He was the man that pulled one back for San Jose in the 80th minute. He was the makeshift left back, subbing on for Marco Lopez, cutting onto his right foot and getting the Quakes level to 1-1. You heard him talk about the confidence and what it means to the team, confidence, and just building upon that. Alex Morgan, what did you make of his comments tonight?
Yeah, Charles, I think Shay's press conferences are always a breath of fresh air. He's just so personable. He is, a consummate professional and always a gentleman. And I think he was a breath of fresh air for this team on the field as well. He was really strong when he came on after Marcos Lopez's injury in the second half. And I think if Lopez is out for any extended period of time, then I think he absolutely deserves to assume that role on a permanent basis, because he made a couple key challenges at the back and also added a lot going forward. That's his classic move, cutting onto the right foot, shooting far post. And I think he struggled in some recent games playing in the left wing position. He didn't really get involved enough up there, but this left back position feels like a better fit.
Joel
for him right
Soria, you have often said that Chris Wondolowski and Shea Salinas are the two players that put this team on their back. True tonight? And you also had mentioned earlier on Twitter that he scored the most important goals for this side so far. Why don't you clarify?
Yeah, there's absolutely no denying that Shea Salinas has scored the two most meaningful Quakes goals this season. I mean, the one in Orlando, the one tonight that inspired the same type of "we won the World Cup" reactions, as Shea noted tonight on the San Jose Earthquakes official Twitter account. Look, I've said it time and time again, you know, the two legends of this team, the most veteran players of this team, and Wondolowski and Salinas, have come through time and time again for this team. As you know, an ex-Earthquakes player, Jordan Stewart, put it. I saw him comment on my latest story for San Francisco Gate. I can't get to it. It looks like we have Jackson Ewell, my man of the match, coming up.
Thank you for joining us. Congrats on
victory.
Thank you very much.
All right, we can jump right into questions. So let's start with Joel Soria.
Hey, Jackson, good evening. Congratulations on the 3 points, on the game winner. Why the flick?
You know, it was it was kind of just like instinctual. The ball was coming in fast, and it was just the easiest way to kind of make contact and put it in. I think it was a good moment for the team, and really good ball by Christian. And happy I could help the team that way.
Thank you, Jackson. Let's go to Elliot Almond.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for taking time, Jackson. Good to see you. I guess I want to follow up with what Joel was asking you. I want to ask you about the play. Christian had 3 defenders on him. He had to backtrack and go around them to get that ball to you. What point did you realize that he was going to come through and get a serve into the mixer?
You know, at the beginning of the game, we talked about trust. You know, we've been lacking a lot of trust in each other and ourselves. And, you know, today our one goal was to trust each other. And, you know, Christian's a phenomenal player, and I had faith that he was going to be able to beat anyone on the field tonight. And he proved it in the most important moment and was able to put in a perfect cross. So I think the most important thing for everyone right now is trusting that your teammate is going to win the duel that he's faced up again and play the right pass. And that's what he did.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jackson. Let's go to Carlos Ramirez next.
Hi, Jackson. Congrats on the win. I was talking to Shea about the attitude. Beyond the tactics, which were obviously different at some point, the attitude was, to me, very different. I mean, the team seemed more confident with a different edge, more aggressive on a football scale. What changed? What conversations went on? What switch was flipped for you to turn into that Orlando team that was so aggressive and so confident?
Yeah, like I said earlier, you know, we were missing a little trust in one another and in ourselves. You know, I think in the past couple of games we were losing confidence, you know, in bad moments, and you know, kind of let the game slip away from us. And tonight our one focus was, you know, just believe in our teammates and believe in ourselves. And so I think you saw that from the first whistle that you know, we wanted to play out of the back. We didn't care about mistakes or passing the ball wrong, and I think that's what we were missing. In the other games was keeping possession when we needed to, and you know, it was super important that we got off to the right foot, and I think the aggressive mentality part from everyone on the team was phenomenal tonight. You know, everyone put in a really hard shift. You know, the games are so close together, and I think everyone who stepped in, started, or came in off the bench, I think did a phenomenal job. You know, keeping the energy very high and not letting them get as many chances as they usually get in most games. So I think the overall performance mentally was very strong from everyone.
Thank you, Jackson. Let's take 3 more questions, starting with Alicia Rodriguez.
Hi, thank you. Jackson, congrats on the goal and the win tonight. Wanted to ask how important having a little bit more rest between games will be for this next week, and how long do you dwell on a result like this? Like how long do you kind of bask in the in the victory and take the good vibes from it, or is this something that like typically you try and move on as quickly as possible? Is this one that you're going to savor a little bit more?
First, the break I think is going to help us a lot. I think the last 5-6 games, whatever we started since the restart has been a lot. I think we're one of the only teams that has played every 3 to 4 days, and it's very challenging. And so I think this extra day or two in between here until next weekend is going to help us a lot. Recovery, and we had some injuries, and hopefully we can get some guys healthy and get a full squad again. So I think that'll help us a lot. And we're going to enjoy the victory tonight for sure. We've struggled a little bit in the earlier games, and this is one of the best teams in MLS despite some of their recent results. I think they're a phenomenal team, and of course we're gonna be happy about the result. But we're still in last place, and we still have a long way to go to get up in the playoff spots and get higher. So of course we're gonna be happy, and we're gonna enjoy the moment. And then when we get back to training, we're gonna get back to work and get ready for Galaxy.
Thank you. Let's go to Alex Morgan next.
Hi, Jackson. Congrats on the goal and on the victory. It looked like you guys were playing a little more defensively tonight in terms of the press. You weren't pressing LAFC center backs as high. Your line of engagement was a little lower. How important was that change, both in terms of tactics and in terms of mindset? How important was that in getting the win?
I think in the last couple of games we've been susceptible to easy goals and counterattacks. And I think this is one of the best teams with the best forwards in the league. And so you give them 10, 20 yards of space, and they'll destroy you, and they'll rack up a lot of goals. And so our goal was to keep the field compact and not let their dangerous players have the space to run at us as they usually get. So I think tactically the coach did really well, positioning everyone, and I think the players did really well executing that plan.
Thank you, Jackson. And the last question of the evening will go to Robert Jonas.
Thank you, and congratulations. I believe that's your first game-winning goal in Major League Soccer as well, so hats off to that. Alex asked a question. I was going to sort of elaborate on that as well, talking about that line of engagement. But you mentioned it too. I noticed it in the game tonight. The play of JT in goal, he seemed very comfortable with the ball at his feet, really allowed you guys to move the ball side to side and have that build up out of the back. Mateus talked about in his comments, being careful with the younger players, not throwing them out there and having them lose confidence. But in what you saw at a JT tonight, and some of the younger players as well, how much encouragement does that give you that, that style of play, and maybe, when JT's moment comes, that he's going to be ready for the moment?
Yeah, I've known JT now for like 6, 7, 8 years, something like that, for a really long time. We played youth national team together, and kind of grew up, knowing each other and playing each other. And I always thought his feet were some of his best attributes. Just the way he can find a pass and put it right where it needs to be, and alleviate some of that pressure that he really is an 11th man and really helps us get out of situations. And I think he did a wonderful job tonight. And he made some amazing saves as well. So yeah, it's up to the coach to bring in the younger players. We speak of guys like Jacob and Cade and Eric and JT, and I think their times are coming. And now that there's a lot of games and they're very close, the whole squad needs to be used, and I think they know that they need to be ready. And when they get their chance to step up and do really well. And I think all the young guys who came in today, JT, Cade, Eric, all did really well and proved that they're important to this team and important to what we're trying to do.
All right. Thank you very much, Jackson. Enjoy the win and have a safe flight home. And thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. We will see you next weekend.
You just heard Jackson Ewell, who had the match winner this evening in the 93rd minute of this game tonight in Los Angeles at Bank of California Stadium. 2-1 victory for the San Jose Earthquakes. 3 points tonight for the San Jose Earthquakes. We haven't said it in a while, but we do say it tonight. Jackson Ewell, a couple of comments and just an abridged version. He said, "We believe in our teammates and we believe in ourselves. It's about trust." He said the break is going to help us a lot. And as you've heard, there's been a big fixture pile up for this San Jose team, basically Sunday, Wednesday, or Saturday, Thursday. But he said, we're still in last place. We have a lot of work to do. And one thing that you always get from Jackson Ewell is he's never not fully satisfied. And the player that he's become under Matias Almeyda, you certainly get that in the way that he plays. And he's searing in confidence in most matches that he plays, such a key role for this team. But he's never really fully satisfied. Obviously, he said, we'll celebrate it, but we're still in last place. Alex?
Yeah, absolutely, Charles. I think that Jackson Ewell has been one of the success stories for the Quakes under Matias Almeyda. He has really blossomed in that position. Some of the other young homegrown players, Nick Lima hasn't really had his chances under Almeyda, but Tommy Thompson and Jackson Ewell are definitely been some of the bright spots. And I think that they deserve to celebrate tonight. Jackson almost ripped his shirt off after scoring that last-minute winner, but he decided against it at the last minute. And I think he and the team deserve to celebrate after a victory following such a long string of defeats. And the quote that jumped out to me was him talking about the defensive setup, because I think that was the difference tonight. He said, we've been susceptible to easy goals and to counterattacks. You give them 10, 20 yards of space and they'll destroy you. Our goal was to keep the game compact. And I think the Quakes did that tonight. And I think that change was crucial. And I give Matias Almeyda credit for making that adjustment. And I think the Quakes might have been better served if they had abandoned the man marking system entirely. But I'm satisfied with the adjustments that Matias Almeyda made tonight.
I think planet Earth is also celebrating this Quakes win. Per San Francisco Chronicle, it looks like there was a 3.4 magnitude earthquake 11.1 miles northeast of the center of San Jose. I didn't feel that, but quite the note there. Pretty fitting for the situation that obviously we're all in at the moment.
Joel, I want to come back to Shea Salinas because you were making some comments about Shea Salinas, and I did ask you time and time again on this program. You always say that Chris Wondolowski and Shea Salinas put this team on their back, and that Shea Salinas has scored the most important goals for this team this year. The one against Vancouver at MLS's back, and then this one tonight to make things level this evening. He said, in his comments that it's hard to start a game at left back, but he always wants to be on the field. Let's just talk about, him being the super sub, but then starting a game here and there, maybe at a right wing or a left wing spot, and where we see his role maybe moving forward for this team.
Thank you for bringing that up again, Charles. I was going to finish my thought, and what I was actually going to finish with is that, to me, Salinas is the quintessential depth player that MLS can offer. He is that spark that every team that any team would want within their roster. He comes in and he can really change the pace and the fortunes of the game in a split second. He's done it for the Quakes time and time again. Ever since he was demoted, I guess you can say, from a regular starting player to more of a role/depth player on the bench. He proves that again tonight. He earns the Quakes, I think, 3 points, because if it's not for his goal, then the Quakes don't really find that last bit of energy to draw out that Jackson Ewell goal. Overall, you can't ask for anything else from a veteran who's given everything for this club, who makes a pretty modest wage, but gives you so much in return. Bench players don't get much better than Salinas in this league, without a doubt.
And look, Joel, Shea Salinas is out of contract at the end of this year, and I think that the first thing that Matias Almeyda and Jesse Fioranelli should do if they're still around this winter is to re-sign Shea Salinas, because as you say, he's the perfect depth player. He is such a leader in this squad, and I think he's just generally a positive presence around this club. So I think that just makes sense for all parties. I think throughout this season, he's contributed such huge goals for this team that he has a really important role to play in this locker room next season.
There's certainly a level of joy in the press conference, as you had said in your earlier comments, Alex, before we heard from Jackson Yueill, and you could see Shea Salinas kind of laughing and talking about this left back role where it's somewhat new to him. And then he's saying it's easier to come off the bench and play left back than to start at left back. Let's transition back to Matias Almeyda and his comments this evening. I have a few other quotes I want to reference in there. He said, "There's a coach who is a person, a coach who cries, a coach who worries, but never gives his job away, ever. In football and in life, you can always achieve what you want. We come from difficult moments, but still." He said, "It's one thing to play youngsters when we're fighting and winning. Youngsters take time. You have to give them time. You have to allow them to make mistakes." Just coming back to the manager, Matias Almeyda's comments again, extremely descriptive. He is someone that will give you the full answer clearly when you ask a question. That's kind of the wonderful beauty of Matias Almeyda as a coach and as a manager when answering these questions, and specifically the philosophy that he abides by as well. But back to Matias Almeyda, Joel Soria, his comments this evening.
Flowery nonetheless. But I did want to talk, a good thing that you brought up Matias again, Charles, because I did want to talk a little bit about the last words, his parting words tonight, which were again another cry to Fisher, pleading to him in a way to put a little more attention on in this team, financially speaking, right? He mentioned at the very end, after Carlos Ramirez asked him about, the Quakes finding that identity that they once had in Orlando. As we know, Matias goes on a tangent and then he goes off course and he finishes his answers in a completely different place to where he started them. Surprisingly enough, and I say surprisingly because obviously tonight was very positive. Matias talked about how happy he was with the way that his players played, with the result, but then at the same time didn't want to focus solely on the result because obviously there is a reality here. The Quakes are still dead last. They're still on the outside looking in, and there's a lot of work to do. But he did mention at the very end that, when they have been defeated in brutal fashion, the teams that they have gone against have had more money to work with. He talks about how, the situations are still a bit unfair. He still has to rely on youngsters from time and time again. The Quakes were able to gain an additional day of practice leading up to this game tonight. They're finally going to be able to practice 5 days this week leading up to the California Classico, which are positives, obviously, an improvement from the situation that they were living a couple of days ago. But he did, again, as I mentioned, his final words were talking about the fact that the Quakes are still on a very, very tight purse. And, I guess if it wasn't for Alex bringing up the money situation, maybe he wouldn't have mentioned that. But to me, it really caught to my attention that even though the Quakes earned a historic, I guess you can say, win against LAFC in Los Angeles, Almeyda still finished his press conference directing some sort of message of pressure to John Fisher.
Yeah, Joel, and I think that even though the Quakes got the victory tonight, Matias Almeyda knows that this team isn't good enough yet, and they still need more investment, and they're still a long way off from where they need to be. And I think that was evident. LAFC dominated possession, and they had all of the chances to win. They just didn't bury them. I will say that I don't think LAFC exploited San Jose's weaknesses. They dominated possession, and they had a bunch of golden opportunities that they should have finished. They easily could have won by 2 or 3 goals. But I really wasn't impressed by their movement. They didn't drag San Jose's defenders out of position, and they didn't make the direct runs down the middle that have made so many other teams so successful against the Quakes. So I don't think they truly broke down San Jose's system like Portland or Colorado did. And it felt a little bit like Bob Bradley assumed that his team would be able to outclass San Jose without adjusting their approach at all, just by playing their usual game plan. And that obviously wasn't true. They created the chances but couldn't finish them. And I think that some of the underlying structural issues are still there. But I think that this team will still need investment, and that the situation doesn't change on the basis of this one performance.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Alex. Wholeheartedly agree with you. I think that this team is still, in for the ride of their lives. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I still do believe that the Quakes will be clawing their way towards that 8th and 7th spot in the West, as they always do. But yes, let's make that very clear. This team is still in a undesirable position, right? They're still in somewhat of that deep hole that they've been able to put themselves in. I also thought that, as you mentioned, Alex, I also thought that LAFC looked mostly confused and uninterested. I mean, you saw a front three from LAFC that didn't really look like they wanted to score tonight. They had perfect chances in front of goal, and they squandered them. BWP didn't look sharp. Brian Rodriguez, who has been hot and cold, despite all the rumors of him going to Italy on a big move. I mean, today he just missed some clear-cut chances that are really inexcusable for the player of his caliber. Rossi, as we know, has shredded the Quakes in the past. Tonight, he just wasn't there. Atuesta, who usually glues this team together, was absent for the majority of the game as well, struggling to connect passes, struggling to track back and create that synchronization between the defense and the attack. No Carlos Vela, obviously, which is huge. Cifuentes went out with an injury. So a lot of negatives, right, from the LAFC that set the Quakes up perfectly to snatch a win, if and only if they were willing to bring tenacity to the table, if they were willing to bring that fighting spirit. They did so. They earned their win. But yes, Alex, as you mentioned, this team still has a really, really steep mountain to climb. And let's see how far they go, because, as Matias was mentioning, there's only so much physical, product that he can get out of these players. At the end of the day, they are humans. They have limitations physically and mentally. So yeah, it's obviously still a lot of work to do, as Matias and Jackson also mentioned. A good dose of reality there from both of them.
And as poor as LAFC were up front, I just want to reiterate how much credit is due to JT Marcinkowski. And Matias's comments after the final whistle in his press conference, he obviously praised JT, but I was also a little frustrated because he said that he always tries to protect the younger ones. Many times when you're going through difficult moments, he says it's not good to play the younger ones because that can take away their confidence. And that was essentially his justification for continuing to start Daniel Vega over JT Marcinkowski in a lot of these games. And that frustrated me because that's, contradictory. He starts Tanner Beeson, he starts Cade Cowell. Those guys are much younger, much more inexperienced in a lot of these games. And yet he's still not trusting JT with that starting position full time, even though I think on the basis of this performance now, he's clearly earned it.
Yeah, I've just seen a lot of chatter in our discussion on the side here from our fans talking about JT and has he earned his spot? Has he not? Vega coming back into the team potentially. Where are we at with this goalkeeper race? Do you think that it might have the ability to be a goalkeeper race coming up here? The battle for this number one shirt? Or do we think that JT's earned it at this point? Or is it going back to Vega?
I don't think there's a clear-cut number one at the moment. I think it's definitely up in the air. Obviously, today, JT had a formidable performance. As I mentioned, not my man of the match, first ballot choice, but definitely had some key additions to this team. He was able to put the Quakes in a position to eke out 3 points with his foot abilities. The fact that he can actually play with his feet, he can distribute the ball. Had 2 saves, and that is what I did want to mention is that Alex, I think you're doing some good PR work for JT. And as Jamon has done as well, decent PR work. You guys are right on cue on that. The Quakes also named him man of the match, which I thought was a bit surprising. In a situation like this, I think a lot of credit needs to be given to Shea Salinas or a Jackson Ewell, who were actually able to change the scoreline. As much as JT saved the team with those 3 fingertips he got on the ball there in one of those saves. I don't think it was enough. I don't think it was enough from JT to earn man of the match, but I think that's not really that shouldn't be the conversation tonight. The team obviously earns much needed 3 points. And to me, that is what every fan should really focus on.
Look, Joel, I think that Jamon and I have both been pushing for JT to start for, upwards of a month now. And I think it only makes sense. I think you're being incredibly generous towards Daniel Vega in saying that they're essentially equivalent. I think JT is at least as good as Vega in terms of his shot stopping, and then all of his other attributes, his distribution, throwing quickly, his playing with his feet, his aerial presence are all stronger. And given his situation, the fact that he clearly is the long-term option for this team in goal, I think now this result, this performance, only reinforces mine and Jamon's belief that he should be the starter.
Let's go ahead and pull up the standings as they are currently live table. Our producer, Jason, who is in the back room working the dials here. As you can see, the Quakes right there, 14 points. Last in the West, it is the top 8 that make the playoffs this year in the Western Conference. Let's go ahead and take a look at the fixtures as well upcoming for the San Jose Earthquakes. They return home to play against the LA Galaxy. Then they've got a midweek game against the Vancouver Whitecaps. A lot of people like playing against the Vancouver Whitecaps, obviously, and then they're away against Portland in Portland as well. So that's the next 3-game stretch for the Quakes. And to note, they do have basically 6 days before they play the Galaxy at home. And then another note is they tied the Galaxy at home a couple of weeks ago where they had that those back-to-back ties as well. I just want to bring in a couple of comments that I saw here. The first one is from Ji-Ju, and Ji-Ju says, in Korean soccer, there's a proverb. It says, when you miss a lot of opportunities, the hardship follows. And I just wanted to point that out because I don't get the chance to see soccer proverbs from all across the world. And we are a global show. We consider ourselves a global show. So thank you, Ji-Ju, for pointing that out. Jason, I'm not sure if we're able to find that or the comment already flashed on the screen or not, but I think it was earlier in the comments. But I very much agree with what he had said and what the lads were talking about. When you miss your chances, obviously the other team has a major advantage. Michael Peachy, he wrote, Matias should teach a class at SJSU, philosophy of life and football, but it's only his press conference responses. I thought that was an interesting comment as well from him, and I certainly agree with that. And Joel noted quite flowery, and I guess I'm wearing the correct shirt for that this evening as well. Final kind of comment or question, and it's more of a tactical one, and we can analyze and break it down before we go for this evening, is from Crispy Churro. And Crispy Churro wrote, Shea said that the team made adjustments based on LAFC, but do you think this is who the Quakes should be going forward? A low block, pressure the ball once past midfield, countering type of team? What do we make of that? And do we think that the Quakes will probably, potentially, maybe not employ this type of tactical plan moving forward as well? Certainly it worked against an LAFC side that just loves to attack in waves and that had their number last year.
I don't know if it's sustainable, to be honest with you. Tonight, I think that the idea was to let LAFC in to their final third and have chances like LAFC did have in the first 45 minutes. They were only able to put one in the back of the net, and they squandered a couple of others. But, I think that it worked this time because of that, because of the missed opportunities, because of the fact that LAFC just wasn't up for it. They weren't up for, really hammering it on their opponent. I think that if you play a team, let's say like RSL or a Minnesota United, who knows this team very well, I think the outcome would have been a lot different. If Carlos Vela was on the field, and if LAFC was controlling most of the possession in the first 45, and if they were able to really hover around the 16 from side to side, switch balls, play in between the channels, I think the scoreline would have been much, much different. Today, the tactics that were deployed by Matias certainly benefited the Quakes, without a doubt. But I don't think that this is the sustainable route. There really isn't a sustainable route at this point in time. I think Matias is tinkering, and which is obviously a positive sign, because what were the critics saying for the last couple of weeks? And I was saying it as well. Matias was stuck in his old stubborn ways. And today he decided to roll out something that looked so anti Matias Almeida on a tactician end, and it paid off. But for me, what I think is going to be the key is continuing just that, being able to adapt, bending to the circumstances. Do I think a low block, minimal pressure approach is the right one? No, I don't think so, because as I mentioned earlier, there are going to be teams that are going to punish you for that. But should the Quakes consider adapting this style depending the ecosystem that they're in? Absolutely. I think it all comes down to flexibility. It all comes down to open-mindedness and to experimenting. I think that's on a tactical level. I think that's where the solution stands.
I agree, Joel. I think that flexibility and adaptability will be huge for this team. And, that's not something that Matias Almeida has done a lot. But tonight we saw that adaptability playing with a lower defensive block, and he deserves credit for that. But I think in most games, the low compact block will be San Jose's best bet. It'll be their best shot at getting a result, because in so many games we've seen them dragged all over the field, out of position, and then totally, completely exploited. And that's why we're getting these lopsided defeats. And so I think the playing this more defensive soccer is more sustainable. I think that actually is the more sustainable way to go. It's more sustainable than losing by 4 or 5 goals every week. And I think that if Matias wants to continue to get results like this in this last stretch of games, in the run-in, that's what the Quakes should be doing. And I think that for basically the entirety of the time I've been covering the team, they've looked the best when they are playing defensive soccer and playing on the counterattack. That is more or less San Jose's identity in this last decade. And I think that if they embrace that in this stretch of games, that'll be beneficial for them.
Final thoughts tonight, and I'll start with you, Joel.
A huge weight off the Quakes' shoulders. They can now breathe for a second, practice for 5 days, and get ready for a rivalry showdown against the Galaxy. This win couldn't come at a better time for Matias Almeida and his men. Going up against a struggling Galaxy and a struggling Whitecaps can put them in close position to fight for that 8th spot in the West. A lot of work to do. The reality still is that the Quakes are in a very, very deep hole, but slowly but surely they're starting to get their ducks in a row, and they're slowly starting to climb out and seeing some sort of light on the other side.
I agree, Joel. I think that this result was important in releasing a little bit of that pressure after a 6-1 loss to Portland, after a 5-0 loss to Colorado. It just wasn't sustainable for this Quakes team to continue losing like that. So this releases a little bit of pressure. I think it'll give a lot of confidence to this team. With that said, I think it'll be easy for them to relapse into old habits against a team like LAFC. And I think that they need to continue to use this more defensive posture in these next couple games if they want to be able to, build on this result.
Thanks, lads. I think you saw a team that was incredibly rock bottom, and tonight they were able to find something. They were looking for something, anything, literally anything. They would have taken the tie, but they were able to get the win this evening. And Matias Almeida, the coaching staff, the players know the position that they're in. They also know that they're last in the table. They also know that the schedule upcoming is going to be extremely hard. You have the defending MLS Cup champions 2 times. You have some other good teams in the mix in the next 10 games. So I do think that they did hit rock bottom tonight. They did, and were able to build on some confidence. Let's see if they continue that. And we will have live press conferences and our show for you, of course, here on Black and Azul. This is episode number 59. I want to thank our associate producer, Aaron Sholl, our executive producer, Jason Sholl, Joel Soria, Alex Morgan, Jamon Moore, who was covering Reno this weekend, but he will be back with us for future shows. For anybody that's celebrating Yom Kippur tomorrow, may you have a good fast, Gamar Tov to all of you. And thank you so much for tuning into Black and Azul. Make sure that you like and subscribe. Stay safe, everyone. Take care of yourselves. And we are thinking about you during this challenging time, especially during COVID, especially of a time of heightened racial issues in the country with a lot of tension. We are very proud to bring you this show week in and week out. My name is Charles Wollin. We'll see you next time.